Well, I went to Hewlett Packard and said, look, we can make a product. We can make a product, and if you take the plastic case and the keyboard and a microprocessor and so much ROM and so much RAM, you know, it was sort of like our calculators. That's what they were. They had a microprocessor inside, they had ROM, and they had RAM, and they had a keyboard that was on. The instant you turned it on, the keyboard was paying attention to it, and a little display. So this was just like a growth of calculators. I said we could do it for $800. And the lab manager, who had had a lot of experience being a major lab manager out here in Colorado, he had actually managed Hewlett Packard's first desktop computer that ran BASIC. And it generally a system sold for about $5,000 to $10,000. Way too expensive for an individual. But it was a desktop BASIC computer. Boy, he was intrigued by what I said. He lost sleep for weeks thereafter. But he couldn't quite justify the use of the resources, or that there wouldn't be technical problems or maintenance problems or support problems. And he said it was sort of the right thing for an outside company. HP's legal department did a nice little 3-day scan of all the divisions, came back and said nobody at HP is interested, so here's a legal release. It was really odd because after getting the Apple I going, right here in our calculator lab, I noticed that some people who had some experience in designing circuits were starting to design a little 8-bit microprocessor. Some people who had experience in programming, there were 5 people writing a BASIC, and I had just written one myself. Then there were people working on a printer interface, and people working on a cassette tape interface, and memory, and all this stuff, everything I'd done for the Apple I. And I saw this project start up, and it had 14 people on it. It was called Capricorn. And I was selling Apple I's by then, but you know, my interest in life was no longer calculators, it was computers. I went to the lab manager, it was a new lab manager. And I said, I want to work on your computer project. And I'll do anything. You know, just because I've done a computer, I don't have to be the central guy. I mean, I'll do CPU or memory or printer interfaces. I'll do cassette interfaces. I'll help write BASIC. And they turned me down, which was one of the few very negative things that was sort of in a sense wrong that I ever saw at Hewlett Packard. When an engineer is dissatisfied with what they're working on, wants to work in a different area, they should go there for their own growth potential. So I was turned down there, and I was also turned down at Hewlett Packard Labs on a project that was going to be a little BASIC computer because I didn't have enough education. So I struck out 3 times at Hewlett Packard and had to do it on my own.